What if love was never salvation but exposure? Vincent Russo believed he was protecting Lily by keeping her outside his violent world, but in reality, loving her only revealed the rot inside everything he built. Lily was not just a woman with trauma, she became the mirror that forced a mafia prince to confront the cycle of violence he inherited. He thought he was raising walls around her. In truth, he was watching those same walls expose the monster, the man, and the cost of becoming either one.
For a man like Vincent Russo, fear was a clinical impossibility. Yet a tremor shook him the night he saw her, the florist Lily Morgan, an unforeseen variable in his carefully constructed empire. Her flower shop was a sanctuary, a fragile barricade against her own brutal past. Their eyes met across a crowded room, a collision of two damaged souls that instantly revealed a fatal flaw in his armor to his enemies. This is the chronicle of a bond forged in trauma, of a hunter's defenses being shattered, and the deadly price of connection in a world built on violence. A procedural note for the record: dissemination will be monitored through likes and geographic comments. The scene was set on a Saturday night at Manhattan's Metropolitan Club, a glittering spectacle of suffocating wealth. Lily Morgan clung to the edge of the room, a ghost at the feast. A wineglass served as her shield, her gaze locked on her best friend, Sophie, the radiant center of it all. Watching Sophie's pure joy only amplified the hollow ache of Lily's own isolation. When Sophie's new husband, Michael, pulled her into a dance, a familiar, phantom pain tightened in Lily's chest. It wasn't envy, but the crushing sense of being fundamentally different. Surrounded by such effortless confidence, she felt her own inadequacy like a shroud. Her fingers moved automatically, tugging at her sleeve to hide the raised scars on her left wrist. A permanent map of a past horror, a trigger always waiting. She told herself to be normal. Sophie, glowing from champagne and joy, drifted over. Her eyes, sharp as ever, instantly caught the nervous tugging at the sleeve. What thing? Lily feigned innocence, a practiced defense. Sophie called it her disappearing thing, this habit of fading into the walls. She linked her arm through Lily's, a gentle but firm anchor. I'm not much of a dancer. You're not much of a hider either, Sophie murmured. But that doesn't stop you from trying. A small smile touched Lily's lips. It's your wedding day. I'm happy just watching you be happy. Sophie's expression softened, a shadow of a hospital room from 3 years ago passing between them. I know crowds aren't your thing. I know parties like this make you feel like you're drowning. But promise me something. Anything. Promise you'll have one good thing tonight. One talk with a stranger. One dance. 1 second where you aren't mapping the exits. The words were a direct strike at her hypervigilance. You deserve good things, Lily, even if you don't believe it. Before Lily could answer, Sophie was swept away by her husband, leaving her adrift again. A familiar, twisted thought surfaced. Every good moment was just the prelude to pain, a lesson branded into her by trauma. She was about to retreat when she felt it, the prickling sensation of a stare, activating every alarm her body owned. She was used to being hyper-aware since the assault, but this felt different. This was predatory. The paranoia from her trauma had faded after 2 years of therapy, but this was no phantom feeling. A slow sweep of the room found him. He stood by the bar, whiskey in hand, watching her openly without shame. Most people looked away when caught staring. He did not. His gaze was a deliberate act of dominance. He was tall, over 6 feet, with dark hair and a face that was more severe than handsome. A sharp jaw, a strong nose, and eyes she couldn't quite read from across the room. The tailored black suit screamed money. But it wasn't his appearance that made her heart hammer. It was his stare. It held no pity, no awkwardness, not even desire. It was the cold, clinical focus of a man taking something apart, piece by piece, to see how it worked. She should have looked away, retreated into herself. Instead, in a startling act of defiance, she held his gaze. The corner of his mouth ticked upward in what looked like approval. Then he started moving toward her, his path deliberate and direct. Panic seized her, her knuckles whitened on her wine glass. "You're Sophie's friend." His voice was a low rumble, deeper than she expected. "The florist." Surprise flickered across her face. "How did you—" "Sophie's mentioned you all week. Said her best friend was handling the flowers herself because no one else could be trusted with the roses." He already knew who she was. He nodded to a nearby arrangement of cream roses and white peonies. "I'm guessing that was you." "Yes." The word was steadier than she felt. "I own a shop in Brooklyn, Petals and Thorns." "Vincent." He offered his hand. "I'm Michael's cousin, the one nobody mentions at dinner." The disarming joke worked. A real smile surprised her. Their hands met. His grip was warm, firm, and brief. "Are you that terrible?" "Depends on who you ask." A flicker of something unreadable crossed his face. "But I promise to be good tonight. Scout's honor." "Were you ever a scout?" "Absolutely not." His bluntness made her laugh, and she felt some of her tension ease. His honesty felt like a relief. "What do you do, Vincent, when you're not the black sheep?" "Import-export." The answer was too smooth, too rehearsed. "Olive oil, wine, things like that." The words were simple, but they didn't match the man. It was a lie. Her own trauma had made her an expert at spotting the cracks in a performance. She had been giving one for years. The lie hung in the air, but she understood the difference between privacy and deceit. Perhaps he had his own scars to hide. "That sounds interesting," she said, playing the social game. His lips curved in approval. "You're a terrible liar." "Excuse me?" "Import-export is boring." He was breaking the rules of conversation, pulling her into an intimacy she hadn't agreed to. "You were being polite." He took a sip of his drink, his eyes never leaving hers over the rim of the glass. "I appreciate it, but you don't have to pretend with me." The words were meant to make him seem different, special. Heat crept up her neck. "I wasn't." "You were. It's fine. Most people do." He put his glass down. "Want to know what I find interesting?" "What?" "How someone who hates crowds this much made something so beautiful for her friend." He gestured to the flowers. "That's love or madness." "Definitely both," she confessed. "Sophie wanted April roses. I had to get them from 3 suppliers and babysit them for 2 weeks. I barely slept, but I got it done." "Of course she did." His gaze was steady and analytical, making her feel like she was pinned under a microscope. Then he asked the question that shattered her composure. "When was the last time someone did something like that for you?" The words hit her like a physical blow. Her throat closed. The answer was never. Not outside a hospital where she was a patient to be managed, a problem to be soothed. But she couldn't say that to him, couldn't explain how she'd learned to make herself small so she would never be a burden. "Model," a retreat was required. Her motion was a faint signal to the room, an escape route from the heat of his gaze. She offered Sophie's absence as a shield. He dismantled it with a clinical observation. "She is by the dessert table with her friends." "A short period of your absence will not be noted," he concluded. "You're scanning the room, a learned behavior," he said, a shadow crossing his face. I maintain situational awareness of all assets, their movements, their potential threats. You expect a threat at a wedding? I expect a threat everywhere. Vincent spoke as if forecasting rain, but Lily felt the chill of the diagnosis beneath his words. She recognized a fellow creature, one who lived by mapping out the next disaster. But not for this moment. Tonight, I am merely Michael's cousin, tasked with inviting a beautiful woman to participate in a ceremonial dance. A beat skipped in Lily's chest. I do not participate in that, neither do I. Then why? Because Sophie was not wrong. You are owed one moment of peace this evening. Vincent offered his hand, palm up, a proposal, not an order. And it is possible I am as well. Lily's eyes dropped to his hand, tracing the calluses across his knuckles that betrayed his cover as a vintner. She saw how his hand was rock steady, while hers trembled. Sophie's words, the idea of a promise, of a brief reprieve. She let herself consider it. She thought of the scars the lavender silk hid on her own wrists, and wondered what damage Vincent's suit concealed. One dance, she heard herself say. After I become a ghost again. Understood. His hand closed around hers, a solid, warm weight, and Lily let him lead her toward the floor where couples moved in a slow, prescribed ritual. Vincent guided her into position, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers, and began to move. He had lied. He was a master on the dance floor. You are a poor liar, Lily murmured, throwing his own method back at him. A deep vibration in his chest was her only answer, the sound of contained laughter. Perhaps I have had cause to practice. They moved in silence as Lily searched her mind for another time she had been held like this, trying to isolate the exact moment she learned to flinch from a gentle touch. The pressure of Vincent's hand at her waist was grounding, not claiming. His hold on her hand was light enough for an instant escape. She felt no desire to pull away. May I ask you something? Vincent's voice was a low murmur meant only for her. You may tell me to stand down if it oversteps. Agreed. Your sleeves. You have a habit of checking them. His thumb brushed the inside of her wrist, the hidden one, a touch so faint it was nearly imaginary. Someone hurt you. It was a declaration, not a query. The air left Lily's lungs. Her body went rigid. Vincent steadied her without a word, never breaking rhythm, keeping her inside the safe circle of his arms. Yes, she whispered, the truth suddenly the only option. Something about this man made honesty an imperative. It happened a long time ago. Was justice served? The question was delivered in that same flat tone, but Lily felt the steel beneath it, a cold, dangerous thing that made her pull back just enough to see his face. His expression was a mask of calm, but his eyes had gone dead flat, sending an icy dread through her. He's in prison, she managed. Incarcerated. Acceptable. Vincent's fingers tightened slightly at her waist. That is an acceptable outcome. They finished the dance without another word, and as the song ended, Vincent stepped away with a formal bow that should have been ridiculous. On him, it was chillingly perfect. I thank you for the dance, Lily Morgan. Thank you for... The words caught in her throat. For seeing her, for not asking questions she couldn't answer, for the fleeting illusion that she was less broken than she believed. A true smile transformed Vincent's face, erasing the years and the threat from his features. For being a terrible liar. You are welcome, he melted back into the crowd, leaving Lily's heart pounding, the ghost of his hand still a warm imprint against her waist. An hour later, she found Sophie, glowing with wine and joy, clinging to Michael as if he might vanish into thin air. "There you are!" Sophie grabbed Lily's arm, pulling her close. "I saw you with him. Who was that man?" "He was gorgeous. Did you get his number? Please tell me you got his number." "Michael's cousin," Lily said, her head still spinning. "Vincent?" A silent, charged look passed between Michael and Sophie that Lily couldn't decipher. Michael's smile was cemented in place, but a new tension gathered at the corners of his eyes. "Vincent was here. He scanned the room. I never saw him. He said he was your cousin. He is. It's just—" Michael shot another glance at Sophie. "Vincent isn't one for family gatherings. We're not close anymore." "Why not?" "Different roads," Michael said, his voice a carefully constructed wall. "Different choices. I wouldn't— Look, he's not a bad person, but he's complicated. It might be best to just forget you met him." But Lily couldn't. Not the way his gaze had catalogued her, as if she were a critical piece of a puzzle. Not the ice in his eyes when he asked if justice was served. Not the feeling of being truly seen for the first time in an eternity. She went home to her apartment over the flower shop, shot the deadbolt twice instead of her usual 3 times, and stared at the ceiling. Different roads, different choices. What was the warning hidden in those words? The shop was still on Monday, matching Lily's mood. She'd stayed late creating a funeral wreath, and her eyes felt raw with fatigue. Sophie's wedding roses were starting to turn, the petals browning at the edges, as Lily broke them down for compost. The bell on the door sang. "Be right there," Lily called out, not looking up. "Just give me 1 second to—" "There is no rush." Her head shot up. Vincent stood in the frame of her shop, a stark figure among the soft colors of the flowers and worn wood. He wore jeans and a dark, expensive sweater, holding a paper coffee cup in each hand. "Coffee," he stated, lifting one slightly. "I was unsure of your preference, so I brought it black with cream and sugar on the side. The barista found my methods irregular, but I deemed it the best approach for risk management." Lily could only stare. Her mouth was bone dry. "Why are you here? I wanted to see your shop and bring you coffee." The coffee was the primary mission. Vincent walked the counter, setting the cups down with precision between a pail of tulips and her ledger. "You left before I had a chance to ask you for coffee in the future. I opted for a more direct tactic. How did you find me?" "You told me Saturday, petals and thorns, Brooklyn." He offered that ghost of a smile from the wedding. "There is only one. Good for business, bad for privacy." "You looked me up." "I did." "Is that considered unsettling?" Vincent asked for her. "Yes, probably, but I spend Sunday unable to stop thinking about you, and my training is to never ignore a significant data point. So I am here, being unsettling, and bringing you coffee. If you tell me to leave, I will. I am hoping you drink the coffee first." Lily took the cup, needing something to do with her hands more than she needed caffeine. It was still hot from the $7 a cup place 3 blocks over. "This is not normal. Marginally. You know nothing about me. I would like to learn." "Vincent?" She had no words to explain that she was not the kind of girl men brought coffee to, that she had learned to kill hope before it could disappoint her, that every good thing came with a price she could no longer afford to pay. "Listen." The single word sliced through the shop's quiet. Vincent was draped against the counter, a portrait of casualness that felt utterly rehearsed. "I know this is irregular. My directness is a blunt tool, and I'm sure it is activating every defense you have. but I am inept at social games, and I suspect you are as well, so I will be plain. Plain about what? I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since Saturday. The way you smiled while Sophie danced, the way you straightened your sleeves when you thought no one saw, the way you danced with me while terrified. His dark eyes captured hers. I don't know what this is. Maybe nothing, maybe everything, but I want to investigate. I think you do too. Lily's fingers tightened, the ceramic of her cup threatening to crack. I am not looking for a relationship. Neither am I. Then what is the goal? Coffee, conversation, we observe the results. A faint shrug moved through Vincent's shoulders. No pressure, no agenda. Just two people, both terrible liars, becoming acquainted. It was madness. He was madness. The whole situation was, yet Lily felt her own head give a traitorous nod. Okay, she whispered. Coffee. A smile broke across Vincent's face, transforming its severe lines into something else entirely. Yes, just coffee. The best intelligence I've received all week. He took his own cup, lifting it in a small gesture. To inefficient liars and the chance to correct our course. Lily touched her cup to his, trying to banish thoughts of sharp things and the price of good fortune. She chose to ignore how Vincent's gaze methodically mapped the shop's exits and sightlines, a repeat of the surveillance she'd noticed at the party. It was easier than reconciling the man who brought a near stranger coffee with the man whose hands were calloused from a life his story didn't include. Rain began to fall, and he stayed for 3 hours. His visits fell into an unspoken rhythm, a pattern of reinforcement she felt powerless to break. On Tuesday, he brought pastries from a bakery she'd once mentioned. On Wednesday, he came empty-handed but helped with her work, moving with a startling competence for a self-proclaimed novice. Thursday, he arrived with more coffee and a worn book on botanical illustration, a nod to her passion. On Friday morning, she finally found her voice to object, even as her hands betrayed her by accepting the cup he offered. This will start gossip, she said. Unimportant, he answered. Turned from her, Vincent inspected an orchid. These are new. They came yesterday, she confirmed. A gift between lovers, a symbol of their first meeting. Lily drank the coffee, made exactly to her liking, a preference he had silently catalogued on Tuesday. His perception was absolute. Don't you have better things to do than linger in a flower shop all week? At present, no. Vincent turned, leaning casually against the window glass. The light shifted across his face, melting the brown of his eyes to bronze. Business is slow. In the import-export sector? Correct. That's a lie. And your ability to detect it is unwavering. His expression changed, a mix of humor and something like respect. Most people don't have that gift. Lily set her cup down, her arms crossing her chest in a defensive posture. 5 days of his campaign had made her bold enough to challenge him. What do you actually do? I told you. Primarily Mediterranean goods. Vincent. A heavy silence descended, broken only by a passing car. The muscle in his jaw flexed, a sign of some internal calculus. My family has business interests in this city, he said, his enunciation precise. Logistics, transport, some real estate. I help manage those interests. That's not the complete truth. It is not. His gaze was steady, relentless. But it is all I can offer you now. If that is insufficient, tell me to leave and I will. It was a clear warning, an offered escape route. She should have taken it, but after 3 years of building walls around herself, Vincent had, in 5 days, found the one hairline fracture in her defenses. Acceptable, she heard herself say. Acceptable. It's acceptable. You can stay. For now. Her hands found the coffee cup again, a familiar anchor. But I'm keeping a record of your omissions. A barely perceptible loosening in Vincent's shoulders betrayed his relief. He had gambled on her response and won. A fair condition. He crossed from the window to her side of the counter. May I ask a question? That depends on the question. The scars on your wrists. You said someone else was responsible. Vincent's voice softened, losing its sharp, analytical edge. You didn't say who did it, or why, or what happened afterward. Her hand instinctively went to her left sleeve, a reflex she couldn't suppress. That's several questions. You don't have to answer. I simply... Vincent hesitated, choosing his words with uncharacteristic care. I need to understand the parameters of your trauma, your triggers, what you're dealing with. A poor choice of words, my intent. He dragged a hand through his hair, a flash of frustration breaking his control. My intent is to avoid causing you harm through my own ignorance. Lily studied him, this chaotic force that had invaded her carefully controlled world. His raw discomfort felt genuine, cracking his confident facade to reveal something honest beneath. His name was David, she said, her voice low and tight. The relationship was 8 months long. He was perfect at first. Charming, attentive, everything I thought I wanted. The words were brittle in her mouth, but she pushed on. Then he became possessive, pathologically jealous. Every phone call had to be justified. He had to approve my clothes. My entire existence required his permission. Vincent became utterly still. With his hands pressed flat on the counter, she could see his knuckles drain of all color. I tried to end it. She paused, forcing air into her lungs. His reaction was not good. He broke into my apartment. He had a knife. My memory of it is in pieces. I woke up in a hospital with my wrists bandaged and Sophie beside me. Were the wounds self-inflicted? Vincent's question was so quiet it was almost lost. The cuts? No, he did them. It was staged to look like a suicide. Lily forced herself to meet his eyes. The police found him drunk in his car nearby. He's serving 12 years for attempted homicide and other charges I don't name. A long moment passed. When Vincent finally spoke, his voice was the same cold, detached instrument from the wedding, the tone of a different man. 12 years is insufficient. I agree, Lily said. But it was the sentence. If he's released, he will not be a threat to me again. I have taken measures. Lily touched her sleeve in an old, ingrained motion of self-comfort. A restraining order, new apartment, new number, he doesn't know where I am. Good. Vincent's hands unclenched slightly. That is a positive result. The terrible confession hung in the space between them. Lily braced for the usual wave of pity. She expected the social retreat that always came after revealing such deep trauma. Instead, Vincent looked at her exactly as he had before, as a complex equation he was determined to solve. Thank you, he said finally, for telling me that. You asked. I did. And you were not required to answer. Vincent lifted his coffee cup. For what it is worth, I believe you are exceptionally resilient. I'm not. You are. You survived a catastrophic event and built a life from the ashes. You opened a business. You kept a vital friendship. You relearned how to exist in the world. His gaze was unwavering. That requires a courage most people are never asked to find. Lily's throat tightened. She looked down, trying to master a sudden, sharp burn behind her eyes. I still check the door locks 3 times before I go to sleep. As do I. You do. An old behavior, Vincent said, his tone deliberately lighter. Different origins, I assume, but the same ritual. We all have our compulsions. What are yours? My compulsions? You're aware of mine now. Reciprocity feels appropriate. Vincent offered a smile that never reached his eyes. I have profound trust issues. My default assumption is that everyone has bad intentions. I sleep maybe 4 hours a night. He paused. And I have a habit of solving problems with money or pressure, even when those methods are wrong. That observation is unusually particular. It is. Vincent drained his drink, collapsing the container in his hand. But you've already noted you're tracking my evasions. A fair point, Lily conceded. They both kept things hidden, a balance of secrets. The exchange was cut short by another customer's entrance. As Lily attended to them, Vincent faded into the shop's background. He was gone by the time the person left 20 minutes later. He'd left a note on a receipt, the penmanship hinting at an expensive education. Dinner tomorrow? Only if your appetite for risk is high. B? Tucking the note away, Lily fought back a grin. He led her to a small, hidden Italian place that took no public reservations. Inside, however, the staff knew Vincent, greeting him with the warmth of family and seating them right away. This feels extravagant, Lily noted as they were shown to a private table. Are you connected to half of New York? Only to the people who matter. Vincent pulled out her chair. Besides, the owner's grandmother makes the world's greatest carbonara. This is a provable fact. I'm not even sure I like carbonara. You will. His certainty was not misplaced. The dish, arriving 40 minutes later and absolutely flawless, drew an involuntary murmur of pure satisfaction from Lily. Vincent watched her, his own satisfaction plain to see. I was right. All right, you were right. Lily took another forkful. This is incredible. Rose has made it that way for 60 years. Some things don't need improving. They finished their meal in a comfortable quiet, the buzz of the packed restaurant seeming a world away from their secluded nook. May I ask you something? The subject Lily stopped eating and wiped her lips. She phrased it as a request he could refuse. A fair trade, she thought, for all her own questions. Michael said you two weren't close, that you took different paths. Her delivery was analytical, more curious than accusatory. What did he mean by that? The subject, Vincent, had a brief, faint tremor in his cheek before his expression smoothed over. Michael's a good man, he said. Works in finance, has a nice wife, a place in Park Slope, perfectly normal, very respectable. And you aren't? Normal. No. Respectable? The corner of Vincent's mouth lifted in a way that was not a smile. That's a matter of opinion. I'm the one with the opinion. Then no. Not remotely. He lifted his wine, taking a deliberate sip. My family's business is not the kind you read about in the business section. We are discreet, and we handle the sorts of problems other people won't touch. Lily felt her pulse begin to race. What sort of problems? The kind that shouldn't be discussed over a meal this good. Vincent set down his glass. I apologize. I know that's not a real answer. It's an answer, she corrected, just not the one I wanted. Would knowing more change this? His gesture encompassed the space between them. This thing we have. Lily considered his question. Not long ago, her response would have been a definitive yes, an instinct to run from any threat to the safe life she'd built. But watching Vincent now, the candlelight dancing in his eyes, she knew she was in too deep to make a clean getaway. "I don't have enough information," she admitted. "Possibly a fair answer." Vincent settled back, studying her. "For the record, I plan to shield you from all of it, the business, the problems. I want this to be normal. Is that even possible? To keep it all separate? I will try." The muscle in his jaw flexed. "You've been hurt enough by other people, Lily. I refuse to be one of them." The conviction in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it triggered a cold, physical dread, the kind of grim promise only made by someone who knows exactly how much damage they are capable of. "Vincent, let's find a new subject." He caught the waiter's eye, ordering dessert for them both. "Tell me about your shop. How long have you had it?" Lily allowed the pivot, feeling a mixture of relief and irritation. They talked about flower suppliers, the challenges of retail, and a problematic landlord. Vincent asked smart questions, remembered small details she'd mentioned before, and made her laugh with stories of how his associate Rose's Nonna terrorized food critics. But underneath the easy performance, Lily felt the weight of the unspoken things, the secrets Vincent guarded, the quiet danger he carried, and the truth that she was falling for a man she barely knew or understood. The tiramisu had a perfect airy texture. Lily ate every bite, ignoring the sense of looming danger. The next 3 weeks unfolded in a series of brief meetings and measured revelations. Vincent would show up at her shop most mornings with coffee and sometimes groceries, books, or thin excuses to see her. He took her to restaurants with no signs, secluded parks, and a midnight movie in Queens. Lily learned that Vincent spoke fluent Italian and passable Greek, had never attended college but was endlessly well-read, and had a scar on his left shoulder from some unnamed violence. She discovered he was generous with money but sparing with his history, had a fierce protective streak, a grim sense of humor, and that his first kiss under a Brooklyn streetlight had genuinely stolen her breath. She also noted his occasional disappearances for hours or whole days, announced by a brief text. "Business. Will call." He always did call, he always came back, but Lily saw the tension he carried in his shoulders afterward, the way his eyes constantly scanned every space, and the phone calls he took outside, his voice low and his jaw set. She never pressed him. Vincent had drawn firm lines around what he wouldn't share, and Lily guarded her own territory. Parts of her mind she kept closed off, even from his careful gaze. It ought to have felt unhealthy to construct a connection on a foundation of mutual evasion. Instead, it felt more real than anything Lily had done in years. "You're seeing someone," Sophie's voice broke through her thoughts. They were having coffee, decidedly not the artisanal kind Vincent brought, and Sophie had been studying her with pointed interest for 20 minutes. "What makes you think that?" Lily's attempt at innocence was a transparent failure. "You've smiled at your phone 3 times, you have makeup on for a Tuesday, and you have that look." "What look?" "The I'm falling hard for someone and I'm totally terrified look." Sophie leaned forward, her expression alight with curiosity. "Details. Who is he?" Lily hesitated. She and Sophie shared a history of absolute honesty, a friendship forged in their sophomore year over bad cafeteria food and worse boyfriends. But Vincent felt different, a secret to be kept. To even say his name felt like it could break the spell. "It's new," she said finally. "I'm not ready to define it." "Is it Vincent?" Lily's head snapped up. "How did you know?" "Michael mentioned he asked about you. You danced at the wedding, and your face right now just confirmed it." Sophie was beaming. I knew it. I saw how he was watching you that night. It's a complicated situation. The good ones always are. Sophie's smile faded slightly. But Lil, I have to ask, are you safe? Michael said Vincent's into some serious business. What kind of serious business? He was vague, just said Vincent isn't a regular guy, that his family has a certain reputation. Sophie reached out, her hand covering Lily's. I trust you. I just need to hear you say you're being careful. Lily thought of Vincent's soft hands and his predator's eyes, his silly lie about olive oil, and the flat coldness in his voice when he asked if her ex, David, had ever paid for what he did. She thought of his habit of noting exits, his whispered phone calls, and his vanishing acts. I'm being careful, she said. The words weren't entirely true, but they weren't a complete lie either. And I can handle myself. I know. Sophie gave her hand another squeeze. Just promise you'll tell me if things get strange. No going through it alone. Lily promised. They changed the subject to Sophie's job, one of Michael's co-workers, plans for the summer, but Lily couldn't shake the words. Serious business, a reputation, what did that mean? Later that night, in bed, her phone's glow lighting up the darkness, Lily did the thing she'd resisted for weeks. She searched online for Vincent Russo. The results were thin, a few mentions in business filings listing him as a consultant. A photo from a charity gala 5 years prior showed Vincent in a tuxedo, looking bored, next to an older man named Antonio Russo, noted as a philanthropist. There was nothing incriminating or dramatic, yet the very lack of a digital footprint was its own clue. Normal people left traces. Vincent was practically a ghost. Lily was still staring at the screen when her phone buzzed with a message. You up? She should have pretended to be asleep, should have taken Sophie's warning and created some space. Instead, she typed back, Yes. Is everything okay? Can I see you now? It's nearly midnight. I know. I need to see you. Please. The use of please was a discordant note that tightened a band around Lily's chest. Vincent never asked. He presented terms and awaited her decision. This felt wrong. Desperate. My apartment. Signal when you arrive. He materialized 20 minutes later, and Lily saw at once that the world had fractured. His hair was a chaotic mess, his knuckles were skinned raw, and a shadow in his eyes made her flinch back as she opened the door. Vincent saw her recoil, freezing on the threshold with his hands slightly raised. Forgive me, this was a mistake. What happened? Lily grabbed his hand, the wounded one, and pulled him over the threshold, bolting the door behind him. Vincent, what happened to your hand? A business negotiation that soured. He tried to smile, but the gesture was a broken thing. The other fellow is in much worse shape. That isn't funny. I know. Vincent let her steer him to the sofa, where he collapsed as if his strings had been cut. I am sorry. I do not wear this state well. What state? The state where I allow myself to be seen when I am unraveled. He studied his raw knuckles, flexing his fingers. My protocol is to handle my business, then appear with coffee as though nothing is wrong. Lily moved to the bathroom, returning with a first aid kit. Sitting beside him, she took his hand. This is going to burn. His threshold for pain was remarkable. Lily tended to the wounds on his hand, a deliberate denial of their violent source. Vincent watched, his breathing evening out. He then deployed a practiced maneuver, casting his secrecy as a shield for her. I will not have you placed in harm's way, he said. Do you understand? She agreed without hesitation. But her eyes asked for her place in this. Lily needed to know she was more than a sanctuary from his storms, but a landmark in his life. He affirmed her value without delay. Vincent began to idealize her, professing she was the sole point of truth in his recent life. He painted his other world as a landscape of inherited duties and hollow obligations. When she asked about this life, a heavy silence fell before he spoke. My family is a nexus, Lily. We are the fixers when all the official systems break down. The work is extra-legal, it is dangerous, and it has been this way for 3 generations. Lily felt a tremor of pure dread run through her. She named the monster in the room. Organized crime. He detailed his role as logistics and conflict resolution. At the recent trouble, a business partner tried to unilaterally renegotiate terms. It was a profound misjudgment. Vincent's expression went utterly flat, revealing a capacity for chilling violence. I made certain they understood their mistake. A normal person would have fled, but Lily began to reframe the narrative. She clung to his earlier tenderness, a mental shield against the immediate and terrifying reality. Why tell me this now? She asked, her voice a bare whisper. He claimed his confession was a necessary truth before they could move forward. His hand found hers, his thumb tracing soothing circles on her skin, an anchor in the storm of his words. I am becoming seriously attached to you, he said, and you have to know what that means before you feel the same. The admission was a physical shock. Lily felt words fail her, unable to reconcile the 2 men before her. My world is lethal, and to be with me is to stand in its shadow. I will do my best to shield you. I will always protect you. But I cannot guarantee my shield will hold, he went on, his voice tight with strain. He laid out the choice: walk away now with no strings attached, or stay and accept the poison tied to his name. Lily looked at their joined hands, his, broken, hers, long since scarred. A perfect, tragic pairing. She thought of every past wound, every friend's warning, every instinct to run. She weighed it all against Vincent's calculated gentleness, a kindness so potent it had forged an unbreakable bond. I am so incredibly scared, she finally breathed. A logical reaction, he admitted, but I'm not leaving. He saw the war in her eyes, relief fighting with terror. I will stay, for now, she clarified. If the danger becomes too much, I will tell you. A deal? A deal. He pulled her into an embrace, and she could feel the violent tremors of his release. Lily held him back just as tightly. Thank you, he whispered over and over. They stayed like that, a silent acknowledgement that everything between them had irrevocably changed. The city hummed its nightly tune as Lily performed the ritual of locking her doors. She slipped back into bed where Vincent slept, their hands still intertwined. The next morning, she woke to find him already armed for battle, his voice on the phone clipped and lethal. I don't care about the excuse. A 30% shortage in the shipment means you have a thief or an idiot. Fix it. He paused. No, I want names by tonight. Make sure they're confirmed. 'Cause if this goes sideways, it will be your head, not mine. He ended the call with a final click. His entire body seemed to soften as he saw her watching. Good morning. Vincent's face transformed, the ice of his authority melting into a practiced warmth. I was hoping not to wake you. You failed, she said, moving about the room to quell her nerves. That sounded intense. Business, he said, closing the distance to seal the boundary with a kiss. Nothing for you to worry about. But it was. To know his world was one thing, to hear its teeth snapping was another. "Hey." Vincent turned her to face him, his touch a gentle weapon. "I know that was jarring to hear. Is your work always so heated?" "Sometimes, when people forget the rules." His jaw tightened. "I prefer diplomacy, but some people only understand the language of force." Lily pictured his bloodied knuckles from the failed meeting. "And last night wasn't diplomacy. That was the behavioral adjustment," he corrected, his eyes looking at something far away. "My world has a code, Lily. Violations are corrected. It's not personal, it's just the system. It seems deeply personal from the one being corrected. Perhaps." His hands dropped from her shoulders. "But the alternative is chaos, a world with no consequences. Our way has order." Lily thought of the man who had attacked her, who had received a laughable sentence of only 12 years. She saw the grim symmetry in their worlds. Vincent's was just more honest about its own brutality. "I have a meeting," he said softly. "An appointment at noon that I can't break. I'll call you later." "Okay." After he left, she was left to wonder about the true price of the deal she had made. The bill came due 3 days later, on a Thursday. As she was locking up her flower shop, 2 men filled the doorway. They were built like brick walls, their size a testament to a life of enforcing will. The one in front wore a leather jacket and a smile that didn't touch his dead eyes. "We're closed," Lily said, her hand sliding toward her phone. "I open at 9 tomorrow." "Our business isn't with the flowers." The first man stepped forward as his partner blocked her only escape route. "We're here about Vincent Russo." Every alarm bell in Lily's body began to scream. She kept her face a mask of calm as she clutched her phone. "I don't know anyone by that name." The lie was flimsy, pathetic. The second man, who wore a scar down his cheek, held up a phone. It showed a photo of her and Vincent, taken only days ago. "You two make a cute couple," he sneered. A cold spike of fear shot through her. "What do you want?" "A conversation." The man in leather leaned against her counter. "Vincent is causing a problem for our employer's business. We thought perhaps his girlfriend could persuade him to be a little more cooperative." "I told you I don't. Stop lying." His voice turned sharp as glass, the friendly act evaporating. "We've been watching you for 2 weeks. We know your routine and we know where you live." "We know everything about you, Lily Morgan." The name on his lips was a violation, waking the ghost of her old stalker, David. But these men were not lone predators. They were professionals. "Vincent doesn't control what I do," she said, her voice a marvel of steadiness. "Threatening me won't work." "This isn't a threat," the first man corrected her. "It's a business proposal. Tell your boyfriend to back off our shipments. Tell him to forget about his expansion into Queens. Tell him to mind his own damn business." When she said nothing, the man called Scar reached into his coat. Lily flinched, expecting a weapon. What he produced was a thick file, which he dropped on the counter. "This is you. Your medical files from 3 years ago, schematics of your apartment, and intel on your friends Sophie and Michael." Scar's voice was utterly clinical. "We don't like violence, Lily, but if Vincent continues to be a problem, we will start liquidating his assets, starting with you." The file sat between them, a tangible monument to her stolen security. They had unearthed her deepest wounds and forged them into weapons. David, the institution, every ghost she had fought to bury was now a threat in their hands. "Get out!" The command came from a place of rage she thought David had long since destroyed. "Leave my shop now." "We're just the messengers, sweetheart. I told you to go." She grabbed the file and flung it at them. Its pages fluttered to the floor, a scattered collage of her stolen privacy and medical secrets. "You can't just walk in here and threaten me. I won't be your pawn. Leave before I call the police." The man in the leather jacket sneered. "The cops? You think they'll help you? They're either on his payroll or look the other way." He raised his hands in a mocking surrender. "Our job is done. The message has been sent. What comes next is up to you." They left, the bell on the door chiming a sickeningly cheerful goodbye as Lily's trembling hands threw the deadbolt. She sank to the floor amidst the wreckage of her life, her breathing shallow, a ghost of the panic she knew in the hospital. The call was an instinct. The phone was already in her hand. Vincent answered on the second ring. "Hello?" "I was just—" "They came to my shop." Lily's voice splintered. "Two of them? They knew everything, Vincent. They had photos, my medical files. They threatened Sophie. They said if you don't stand down, they're going to—" "Where are you?" His tone turned to ice and steel. "Lily, confirm your location." "The shop. I'm at the shop. I've locked it, but—" "Stay there. Don't open the door for anyone but me. I'm 10 minutes away." She could hear a car door slam, an engine roaring to life. "Are you hurt? Did they lay a hand on you?" "No, it was all in my head. They showed me." Lily's gaze drifted to the photos on the floor. The images laid out her daily life, proof of weeks spent under a watchful, unseen eye. "They've been watching me for weeks." A torrent of angry Italian erupted from the phone. 10 minutes, Lily. Just stay put for 10 minutes. He arrived in 7. The squeal of tires was followed by a sharp knock on the door, and Lily let him in. He immediately pulled her into a fierce embrace, his hand cradling her head as his arm locked around her waist. "I'm sorry," he growled into her hair. "I am so sorry. I should have anticipated this. I failed to keep you safe." "You promised you would. You swore you'd keep me out of this." Lily twisted free, fury burning through her fear. "They know about Sophie, Vincent, where she is, what she does. If they hurt her because of me—" "She won't be harmed. You won't be harmed." He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. "Anyone who even considers threatening you, I will end them. Do you understand me? Anyone." "That's not a solution." She pushed against his chest, creating a space to think. "You can't just kill the problem away. They know where I live. They have my whole life. How am I supposed to ever feel safe again?" A muscle feathered in Vincent's jaw. "Pack a bag. You're coming with me until this is handled." "No." "Lily, get me." "Absolutely not. I'm not being forced from my home and my business because some thugs think I'm your weakness." She hugged her arms to her chest, trying to still her shaking. "You said there were rules in your world. Does this follow the rules?" "This breaks them." His face went hard and cold. "Civilians, family, they are off limits. They're either desperate or stupid, maybe both." He took out his phone, his thumbs a blur across the screen. "I'm assigning you a security detail. My men will watch your apartment, the shop, Sophie's place. Any threat will be neutralized." "Your men." Lily let out a sharp, painful laugh. "A week ago, I was a florist. Now I need bodyguards because I'm with you." He looked as if she had struck him. "If you want me to leave, just say the word." I'll make sure you're protected until it's over, then I will be out of your life. Is that what you want? What I want is irrelevant. Your safety comes first. She watched the tension in his shoulders, the deliberate distance he kept, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. He was offering her an escape, and she could see the price it would cost him. Her mind flashed through recent memories, morning coffee, how he accepted her past without judgment, the gentleness in his touch. She remembered him admitting his feelings, a rare crack in his armor. I don't want you to disappear. The words were softer than she'd meant. But I need you to fix this, Vincent, not with more violence. Fix it for good, so I don't have to live my life constantly afraid. I will. Vincent closed the gap between them, his hand finding hers again. You have my word, Lily. This ends now. He made good on his promise with terrifying efficiency. Within hours, 2 men were watching her building, one from a car and another from a cafe. Her shop was under similar watch by agents posing as customers. Sophie's call came that evening, her voice thin with worry. Lily, what is going on? Michael got a call from Vincent about protection, and now a car is following me from work. Lily closed her eyes and pressed her forehead to the cold window. I'm sorry, I am so deeply sorry. I should have told you everything sooner. Told me what? Vincent is in the middle of something. Some people think they can use me and you as leverage against him. The admission felt like a confession of failure. I tried to keep it separate, to protect you from it, but I couldn't. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Are you safe? Yes. Vincent has people watching my building. Good, that's good. Lily could hear Sophie's shaky breath. Michael is furious. He knew Vincent wasn't clean, but he never imagined it would spill over like this. I know, I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. This is not on you. Sophie's voice gentled. But Lil, I need you to tell me everything. How serious is it with Vincent? It's serious. Are you falling for him? Lily thought of his protective hold, his gaze that made her feel seen, and the raw possession in his voice when he promised her safety. Yes. The word was barely a sound. I think I am. Okay, we'll face this together then. Sophie paused. But if he gets you killed, I will be incredibly upset. Noted. Vincent didn't come back that night. A text arrived around midnight. Handling it! Don't wait up! Lily lay awake, staring at her phone, fighting images of what handling it meant in his world. She found out when he arrived the next morning. He looked worn out and grim, a new bruise darkening on his jaw. It's over. Vincent collapsed onto her sofa, taking the coffee she offered. The men who came here are no longer a problem. What does that mean exactly? It means their employer has been convinced to retire permanently. He took a sip of coffee, wincing as it hit a fresh cut on his lip. And the 2 messengers were taught a lesson about the consequences of targeting civilians. Lily sat with him, her eyes tracing his injuries and the exhaustion carved into his face. Did anyone die? No. He met her gaze. I wanted to, but that would have started a war, bringing more people into the line of fire. So I chose a different way. What way? The less you know, the safer you are. He put his mug down and took her hand. The threat is gone. The security is gone. You can go back to your life. Could she? A bitter laugh escaped her lips. My life doesn't include my past being weaponized because of a man. It doesn't have bodyguards. She pulled her hand free, pressing it to her head. I don't know how to do this, Vincent. I'm not equipped for a life that is so wrong, I know. His own voice shook. And I know I keep saying I'll protect you, but you're right. It's not enough. You deserve better than this, better than me. She refused the sacrifice. This isn't about you, Lily insisted, her voice tight. This is about whether I can breathe in your world and not lose myself. And I don't have an answer. Vincent offered a slow, deliberate nod. Then what do you need? I need a ceasefire. Time to think where your kindness doesn't mask my fear. Her throat tightened around the words. Can you give me that? For how long? I don't know. A week, maybe more. She watched the pain settle on his face, hating that her words were the cause. I am not leaving you. I just need to see if I am strong enough for your love. Agreed. Vincent stood, and Lily saw the sheer force of will it took for him to turn away. 1 week. I will not contact you unless you call. And Lily, yes? Your choice, whatever you decide, will be respected, no matter the cost to me. He left her in the ringing silence of her apartment, a decision she was already starting to doubt. The week that followed was the longest of Lily's life. She clung to her routine at the shop, arranging flowers and serving customers, wearing a mask of normalcy. But every morning without his coffee felt wrong. Every night without his voice asking about her day left her staring at her phone, her thumb hovering over his name. Sophie appeared on the third day, her quick glance taking in Lily's condition before pulling her into a hug. You look like hell. Thanks, just what I needed to hear. Lily eased away with a weak smile. How are you holding up? Better than you, apparently. Sophie perched on a counter stool, claiming Lily's half-drunk coffee. Michael's okay for now. Vincent called him, said the situation was handled. He even apologized for us getting dragged into it. He did. He did. And it sounded like he meant it. Sophie watched her over the rim of the cup. So what's the plan? About Vincent? About Vincent? Lily sighed, plucking withered petals from a vase of roses. I don't know. One part of me wants to run for the hills. The other feels his absence like a missing limb. What does your gut say? My gut says I was a fool for getting involved with a man from a world I can't begin to grasp. Lily tossed the dead petals aside. But my heart says he's the first man since David who made me feel like I mattered. You have always mattered, with or without him. Sophie's voice was soft but firm. But Lil, I've seen the way he looks at you. That man would burn the city down to keep you safe. The question is, can you live with that kind of fire from someone so dangerous? I thought I could. Then those men came, and I saw how utterly powerless I was. Lily met Sophie's eyes. What if next time it's something Vincent can't fix? What if someone else gets hurt? Then you face it together. That's what love is. Choosing someone despite the chaos, despite the fear. Sophie reached across the counter and took her hand. But you have to choose, Lil. You can't stay in this limbo forever. That night, Lily made a list. In one column, she wrote down the reasons to leave, the danger, the secrets, the violence coiled just under his skin. In the other, the reasons to stay, the coffee, the quiet understanding, the way he saw her scars not as damage, but as history. The list of reasons to stay was longer. She was staring at it, phone in her hand, when a sharp knock echoed from her door. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. It had only been 5 days, not the full week, but maybe his willpower had broken. Maybe he... She peered through the peephole and froze. Sophie stood in the hall, mascara running down her face, her eyes wide with pure terror. Lily ripped the door open. Soph, what's wrong? I need Vincent. Sophie stumbled past her into the apartment, shaking so violently she could barely stand. You have to call him. Right now, please. What happened? Michael. Sophie's voice broke. Michael did something stupid. He borrowed money from the wrong people to cover stock losses, and now they want $200,000 by Monday or they'll... She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. They sent pictures, Lily. Pictures of our house, our family, everything. Just like they did to you. An absolute cold seeped into Lily's bones. What people? Who did he borrow from? I don't know the details. Some loan shark in Queens. Michael thought he could handle it, pay it back before anyone knew, but the interest is insane and we're drowning and they're threatening. Sophie gripped Lily's arms. Vincent can fix this. He has the money. He has the power. Please, you have to ask him. A stillness descended upon Lily. This was the exact nightmare she had foreseen, Vincent's world bleeding into the lives of those she loved. But this wasn't his fault. This was Michael's desperation, Sophie's fear, and a brutal truth that existed whether Lily saw it or not. Okay. Lily took out her phone. Okay, I'm calling. Vincent answered on the first ring. Lily, I need you. The words came out with a calm she didn't feel. Sophie's here. Michael's in deep with a loan shark. They're making threats. It's bad, Vincent. It's really bad. I'm on my way. 20 minutes. A short pause. Are you safe right now? Yes. We're at my place. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone but me. He was there in 15 minutes, and when Lily opened the door, a small piece of her terror subsided. Vincent took in Sophie's tear-stained face, then Lily's, and his expression turned to stone. Tell me everything, he commanded. Sophie poured out the whole, panicked story. She explained how Michael lost nearly $300,000 in bad trades, how his panic drove him to a contact from his gym, how the terms of the loan seemed manageable until the interest started compounding weekly, how they tried to keep up but fell behind, how the threats started small and then grew ugly fast. Vincent listened to it all without moving, his face an unreadable mask. When Sophie finished, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Marco, I need intel on every loan sharking operation in Astoria. Focus on the ones preying on guys in finance. A beat. I don't care what time it is. Get it done. He ended the call and turned back to Sophie. Who exactly did Michael borrow from? I need a name. Dmitri, something like that. A Russian guy. His office is above a deli on Steinway Street. Sophie wiped at her cheeks with a trembling hand. Please, Vincent, I know we're not close. And I know this is a huge thing to ask, but Michael is frozen with fear and I don't know who else to turn to. Where is Michael now? At home, waiting. Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. They said, Monday, that's in 3 days. A muscle flexed in Vincent's jaw. All right, here is what is going to happen. You will go home to Michael and tell him he is to have no more contact with Dmitri, no more payments, no moves at all until he hears from me. Can you do that? Yes, but no buts. I will handle this. Vincent's tone left no room for debate. But Sophie, you need to understand something. If I make this go away, Michael never gets to make this mistake again. No borrowing from sharks, no reckless bets, no dragging you into his mess. This is a one-time fix. Sophie nodded, her movements quick and desperate. I'll make sure, I promise. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you so much. After Sophie left, Lily stood in her kitchen watching Vincent pace as he snapped orders into his phone with the same icy command she remembered from the night they met. When he finally hung up, the silence was a heavy weight. "You can't just pay Michael's debt," Lily said quietly. Vincent turned to face her. And why not? Because it doesn't solve the problem. It's just, she struggled for the right words. It's using your money and your power to bandage a wound. What about the next person Dmitri goes after? What about all the others he has trapped? That's not my problem. Yes, it is. You told me your world has rules, that there are consequences when they're broken. Doesn't Dmitri deserve consequences? Vincent studied her for a long, silent moment. What are you asking me to do, Lily? I'm asking for a real solution, not just a check. Not just making Michael's problem disappear. Lily crossed her arms, feigning a bravery she did not feel. Make sure Dmitri can never do this to anyone ever again. You're asking me to dismantle his entire operation. I'm asking you to do the right thing. Vincent let out a harsh, empty laugh. The right thing. In my world, that concept doesn't exist. There's only profitable or not profitable. Smart or stupid. Surviving. I don't believe that. Lily stepped toward him, holding her ground. You could have killed the men who came after me. You didn't, because it would have started a war. That was the right thing. It was strategic. It was both. She reached out, her fingers brushing his, feeling the tension coiled in his arm. Sophie is my best friend, Vincent. The last person standing after my own mind had driven everyone else away. If this is just about money, if Dmitri walks away to ruin others so long as Michael is safe, I won't forgive myself. Conflict washed over Vincent's face. You want me to start a war with a man of considerable power and influence? That is no small thing. I know. People could be hurt. Even you. I know that too. A faint tremble entered Lily's voice. You wanted to keep me separate from all this, but it's impossible. My world has Sophie, hers has Michael, and now he is caught in your world whether we like it or not. So you must end this completely or not at all. Vincent pulled his hand from hers, his gaze turning away. Lily watched the hard line of his shoulders rise and fall as he fought an internal battle. When he finally spoke, his voice was gravel. If I do this, if I go after Dmitri, it won't be clean. There's no honor in it. It will be a raw, brutal message that predators like him are not welcome on my ground. He looked back at her. Can you live with that reality? Or can you live with doing nothing? I've lived through worse. That's not an answer. Vincent turned to face her, his expression raw. You're asking me to break my own rules, to care about justice for strangers, when my entire life has been about surviving a world that eats men like me. I'm asking you to try. Lily closed the space between them. You said I deserved a better man. Maybe you deserve a better life than the one you think you're stuck in. For a long moment, Vincent just watched her. Then he pulled her into him, burying his face in her hair, clinging as if she were the only thing holding him together. All right, he whispered. All right, I'll try. The next 48 hours were a blur of hushed, urgent phone calls and Vincent's long disappearances, from which he'd return bearing new bruises and grim reports. Lily learned more of his world in those 2 days than in the last month, absorbing the language of territory and loyalty, and the delicate truce that kept New York's underworld from devouring itself. She discovered Dmitri Volkov ran a loan sharking ring that had destroyed at least 17 families this year, with interest that made repayment a fantasy. His ties to a Russian crew from Brighton Beach were thin, His collection tactics were savage, but his personal security was a joke. He has no real backup, Vincent explained Saturday morning, sitting at her kitchen table surrounded by a laptop and scattered files. The Brighton Beach outfit uses him when it's convenient, but they won't go to war for him. So what's the plan? I'm going to make him an offer. Vincent's smile held no warmth. He will forgive every single one of his debts, not just Michael's, all of them, and then he will shut down. And in exchange, I won't systematically burn his entire operation to the ground and broadcast his weakness to every shark in the city. Will he agree? Not at first, but he will. Vincent shut the laptop. Men like Dimitri understand one thing: power. He thinks he has it. I'm going to correct that misunderstanding. Lily wanted to ask how, to know the grim details of Vincent's method, but the memory of Sophie's terrified face silenced her. Some things were better left unknown. On Sunday evening, Vincent came to her apartment with Marco, his intel specialist, and a second man introduced simply as Tony. They were polite, professional, but radiated a quiet lethality that set Lily's nerves on edge. We need your living room for a few hours, Vincent said. A planning session? You can stay in the bedroom, or I can take you somewhere else if this is too much. Lily looked at the three men filling her small home, their files and laptops transforming it, the air thick with tension. Every fiber of her being screamed to run, to hide from what they were about to unleash. But this was her mess too. She'd pushed Vincent to fix the rot, not just patch the wound. The least she could do was witness the process. I'll stay, she said. But the bedroom door stays open. Vincent's expression softened almost imperceptibly. A fair term. From her room, she listened to their quiet, methodical planning. She heard them discuss leverage points and psychological warfare. She heard the cold precision in Vincent's voice as he outlined how to dismantle a man's life. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt a strange flicker of pride that he was doing this not just for Michael, but for every other person Dimitri had broken. Marco and Tony left near midnight. Vincent found Lily on her bed, pretending to read a book she'd forgotten pages ago. Tomorrow, he said from the doorway. I'm meeting Dimitri tomorrow afternoon. Is it dangerous? Very. Vincent crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed. He won't like my offer. He might try something, but you'll have backup. Marco and Tony will be close, and I'm bringing a file. Proof of every crime Dimitri has ever committed, every alliance I can destroy if he pushes back. Vincent's hand found hers in the dark. This is me trying, Lily, trying to do this your way, I know. She squeezed his fingers. And I'm so scared, so am I. Really? Yes. Vincent gave a low, hollow laugh. You make me want to be better, and that is the most terrifying thing in the world. Because being better means caring about more than just surviving. It means having something you can't bear to lose. Lily pulled him down to lie beside her, letting him wrap her in the shadows. Promise you'll be careful tomorrow. I promise, and promise you'll come back, always. Vincent traced kisses across her forehead, her cheek, her mouth. I'll always come back to you. They fell asleep, tangled together, and Lily dreamt of flowers growing through cracks in scorched pavement. Monday afternoon crawled by. Lily tried to work on a floral piece for an anniversary, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She stared at her phone constantly, waiting for a message from Vincent that never came. Sophie called too. Anything? Not yet. Lily pulled the leaves from a rose stem, wincing as a thorn bit into her thumb. He's meeting him this afternoon. Michael is a wreck. He wanted to go to, I don't know, prove he's brave or something. Sophie's voice was taut with stress. I told him to stay put and let Vincent handle it. Good. Lily watched a bead of blood form on her thumb. This is Vincent's world. Michael would just be a casualty. Lil, can I ask you something? Yes. Do you regret it? Getting involved with him, I mean. Knowing what you know now about his life. If you could go back to that wedding, would you still dance with him? Lily thought of coffee and bruised knuckles, of the way he saw her scars and called them strength. She thought of the fear, the danger, and the sharp, certain knowledge that loving him came at a heavy price. Yes, she said quietly. I'd dance with him again, even knowing all this, especially knowing all this. Lily put the rose down, watching the blood well on her skin. Because he makes me feel alive, Soph. For the first time since David, I feel like I'm actually living, not just surviving. That's good. That's so good. Sophie's voice cracked. I just hope we all get through what comes next. At 4:30, Lily's phone buzzed. She snatched it so fast she nearly fumbled it. Vincent's message was 2 words. It's done. Coming to you. Relief washed through Lily so fast her knees went weak. She began to type her reply. Are you okay? What's okay? I'm breathing. Nothing's broken. He materialized an hour later, looking like he'd been through hell but had emerged intact. A dark bruise bloomed on his cheekbone, and his shirt was ripped at the shoulder. Yet he smiled as Lily opened the door. It's done, he said again, drawing her into his arms. Dimitri is finished. Every debt is cleared, every record burned. He'll be gone from New York by the end of the week. How did you... Turns out he had more enemies than friends. Once I showed him his Brighton Beach allies were ready to cut him loose, he knew fighting me would cost him everything. Vincent's embrace tightened around her. So you took the deal. And Michael, he's clear. So is Sophie. I made Dimitri understand that if he goes near them again, there won't be a second negotiation. Lily leaned back, taking in his face. The bruise, the weariness, the raw victory blazing in his eyes. You did it. You actually did it. We did it. This was your plan, remember? Vincent's fingers brushed her cheek. You told me to be better. It seems you were right. I could be. Does it feel good? Being better, it feels terrifying. Like I'd just painted a target on my back for every other shark in this city. Vincent's smile was grim. But yes, it feels good. Embraced in her doorway, silhouetted against a Brooklyn sunset, something inside Lily settled into place. She saw the truth of their violent, perilous, and impossibly tangled connection and chose it, chose him. I love you, she said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. I know this is insane and foolish and absolutely terrifying, but I love you. Vincent's pupils widened, his guarded expression softening into something open and raw. Say it again. I love you, Vincent Russo, with all your secrets, all your dangers, and your damaged way of fixing things with force, Lily repeated, a laugh breaking free with the tension. They sealed their confessions with a deep kiss that felt like a vow. I have since that first dance, he murmured. Maybe longer. They stumbled inside, and Lily shut the door behind them. For the first time in 3 years, she forgot the ritual of checking the locks, an unconscious surrender of her safety into his hands. The week that followed was a fragile imitation of normal. Michael and Sophie offered their apologies, and Vincent's ever-present security vanished. A new rhythm began, Lily at her shop, Vincent in his world of shadows. The peace in Vincent's world was always destined to be brief. The shatter came on a Thursday evening, 14 days after the Dimitri affair had ended. As Lily was locking up her shop, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She hesitated for a heartbeat, then answered. The voice was male, crisp, and unfamiliar. Lily Morgan, who's calling? My name is Detective Chen, NYPD Organized Crime. A heavy silence stretched. I need to discuss Vincent Russo with you. I shot through her veins, but her denial was cut short. Let's not insult each other by playing games. We've been watching Mr. Russo for half a year. We know about you. Detective Chen's voice was surgical as he recounted what he knew of the Dmitry Volkov situation. Then you know Vincent helped us, Lily countered, her mind scrambling for purchase. He stopped a man who was hurting people. The detective twisted the narrative. He eliminated a business competitor. Chen offered her an escape route, calling her a good person caught up with a very dangerous man. Lily's refusal was instant. I don't need a way out. To this, Chen responded with a list of 12 suspected felonies, from racketeering to extortion. We're building our case, Miss Morgan, Chen stated, and Vincent Russo is going to prison. The only question is if you'll be going with him. Her knuckles went white around her phone. What do you want? She whispered. Information. Testimony, he said, laying the choice bare. Her freedom in exchange for his. She called it betrayal. He called it survival. He finished by telling her to think about her future and gave her a number, but her hands were shaking too violently for her to save it. When the call ended, the silence left in its wake was crushing. Her first instinct was to run to Vincent, to warn him, but Chen's words held her paralyzed. That night, she lay beside a sleeping Vincent, her mind a war zone. She tried to reconcile the man beside her with the criminal the police were hunting. The question echoed relentlessly. Could her love for him justify the immensity of what was being asked? He stirred, sensing her turmoil. Can't sleep, he murmured. Just thinking about us, the future. What happens when your world finally comes for you? The drowsiness vanished from him. He was instantly coiled and alert. What have you heard? Her answer was a half-truth, a shadow of the fear consuming her. I'm just scared, I guess, that this is too perfect to last. He pulled her closer, his promises of safety and control a familiar shield. Nothing will happen. We're safe. I have it all handled. But for the first time, she heard the hollow note beneath his confidence. The realization landed with the finality of a closing door. Loving him was a choice she made every day, a step toward her own ruin. She kissed him, and the kiss tasted of despair, deceit, and her own beautiful broken love. Promise me something, she whispered, anything. Promise that no matter what, you'll remember I loved you. Even when it all falls apart. His denial, nothing's falling apart, was a lie they both needed to believe. She clung to him, weighing two impossible betrayals, searching for the one that would scar her soul the least. The choice was simple and monstrous: save herself or save the man she loved. Distant sirens wailed, but the sound no longer sparked fear in her. She lay awake all night, a physical weight pressing on her chest, her mind haunted by visions of two futures, both ending in ashes. As dawn broke, Vincent left, entirely oblivious to the devastation in her eyes. A man so centered in his own universe he couldn't see another one collapsing right beside him. After he was gone, Lily stared at the unknown number in her call history. She knew calling Chen was the logical choice, the only way to save herself. but she'd stepped off the path of logic the moment she let Vincent into her life. With a single, deliberate tap, she made her allegiance clear and deleted the number forever. The days that followed were a masterful performance of normal, as she pretended not to feel the constant weight of being watched, carefully maintaining the rituals of a life she knew was already gone. Her anxiety had sharpened into paranoia, seeing undercover agents in every new face. The inner turmoil was written on her features for her associate, Sophie, to see. "You look like you've been awake for a week." Lily's deflection, "Just busy with the shop," was cut short. "Don't you lie to me. What's happening?" Lily paused, caught between the need to confess and the fear that saying it aloud would give the threat a form she could no longer deny. But telling Sophie would make the crisis inescapable. "I received a call," she finally admitted, "from a detective. He's looking into Vincent." Following Sophie's stunned silence, Lily explained the deal for her testimony. "He wants my help to put him away." "And you said?" "I said nothing. I just hung up." Cutting off Sophie's inevitable advice, Lily declared, "I can't, Soph. I won't betray him." "Not even if you go down with him?" "Not even then." The words were a vow of devotion and a sentence. "I'm in love with him," she confessed, "and maybe that's foolish, but I won't be the one who sends him to prison." Sophie changed tactics, urging Lily to warn Vincent so he could prepare. "You should at least go through it together," she reasoned. Lily feared that telling him might only make things worse. Sophie was firm. "He needs to know, and you shouldn't have to bear this by yourself." That night, facing Vincent's untroubled expression, Lily began the impossible conversation. "We have to talk." The easy warmth drained from Vincent's face. His frame went taut, a reflexive defense against an unseen enemy. "Tell me." "A detective contacted me a week ago," Lily began, holding his stare. "He's aware of us, of Dmitri. He pressed me to cooperate, offered me immunity." The silence that fell between them was absolute. Vincent's features remained impassive, but his hands curled into tight fists at his sides. "What did you say to him?" The question was a model of restraint. "I told him nothing. I deleted the number. I will not help them put you away, Vincent." "I won't be the one who puts you behind bars," she insisted, fighting a tremor in her hands. "But they're closing in." A slow breath left Vincent, the coiled spring inside him loosening. "I know," he admitted, stunning Lily into silence. "I've known about this for months." A deep exhaustion etched itself onto his face as he claimed his secrecy was to protect her from worry, a hollow, paternalistic excuse. Her challenge was met with a bitter, rhetorical sneer, a cynical dismissal of any notion of candor about his criminal world. "You see, my plan to keep you separate. It failed." The failure was palpable in the air between them. Lily's anger was a shield for her fear, a classic response to trauma. Her question about his next move was a desperate grasp for control. His playbook was simple: erase evidence and intimidate witnesses. Vincent stepped closer, his touch a deliberate act of reassurance. "My focus is on neutralizing threats, securing our assets, and making sure witnesses become unhelpful." She saw it for what it was: witness tampering. He called it insurance. The clenching of his jaw was the only sign of the pressure he was under. He confessed his choices were now just damage control, admitting the long-term outlook was grim. Lily retreated, creating a gulf between them to think. "And what is the protocol if they arrest you? What happens to us then?" "You cut all ties. You tell them we were estranged." that you are ignorant of my affairs and you return to the life you had before. That is not a solution. It is the only contingency there is." A tremor in his tone revealed a fissure in his stoic facade. "Lily, the rules of this were clear from the beginning. This outcome was a calculated risk. And I am expected to just stand by while you go to prison? If it guarantees your safety, yes." He stepped forward, erasing the distance, his hands framing her face with a fierce possessiveness. "I can survive prison. I can survive losing every dollar. I cannot survive you becoming collateral damage for my choices." Tears burned in Lily's eyes, a storm she held back with sheer will. "I hate this situation. I hate that we can't overcome this like normal people." "I am aware. I apologize." "Don't apologize. Find a solution." She clutched his wrists, her grip a physical manifestation of her plea. "You are Vincent Russo. You solve impossible problems. Solve this one. This is more complicated. Then simplify it. Find an exit that doesn't involve your conviction or my betrayal." Her voice rose, sharpened by desperation. "You told me you had feelings for me. Show me. Fight this fate instead of surrendering to it." Vincent stared, her defiance recalibrating his perspective. He then pulled her close, seeking refuge in her arms as if she were his only anchor. "Yes," he murmured against her hair. "Yes, I will find a way." His attempt unfolded over 2 weeks of shadow planning and encrypted calls. Lily discovered Vincent's alliance with a lawyer, Elena, a master of dismantling prosecutions, exposing a counter-operation that had been running for months. The obstacle was the police's ironclad evidence, tying Vincent to everything from racketeering to financial crimes. "Our best case is a plea for lesser charges," Elena explained during a tense briefing Lily demanded to be part of. "We could potentially get it down to a minimal prison term." "Define minimal," Lily pressed. 3 to 5 years with good behavior." Beneath the conference table, Vincent's hand covered hers, a quiet anchor in the storm. "That is an unacceptable outcome. Then a more substantial offer must be made." Elena regarded them with the detached gaze of a surgeon. "Complete exoneration for Vincent hinges on his full cooperation with the prosecution. He would have to testify against a superior." "Negative." Vincent's refusal was swift and absolute. "I do not operate as an informant. Even if it is the only way to avoid a conviction." "Even then," his jaw set like stone, a telltale sign of his unbending will. "Betraying my associates means I'm terminated within the month. Prison offers a greater chance of survival." A wave of nausea hit Lily. This was his brutal calculus, a world where the only choices were death or a cell. An allegiance trumped all hope of freedom. An urge rose in her to rail against the cruel logic of his world, to demand he choose her over a fatal code of ethics. But she knew forcing him to break his principles would erase the man she loved. Her love was for him as he was, not some altered version. "There must be another variable," she insisted softly. "An angle we've missed." A silent message passed between Elena and Vincent. "One possibility exists," Elena said carefully, "but the risk is substantial, and the execution must be flawless." "Name it." "We allow the police to take Vincent. We let them believe they have won." Elena opened a file, fanning documents across the table. "But before they make their move, we orchestrate the permanent disappearance of critical evidence. Essential witnesses will suddenly develop new, untraceable bank accounts and become ghosts." "You're talking about obstructing justice," Lily observed. I am talking about a plan to gut the prosecution's case before trial, Elena countered, her tone severe. It is an illegal and immoral tactic, but one with a chance of succeeding. Vincent rejected it out of hand. Too many moving parts. The chance of catastrophic failure is too great. Can you offer a better alternative? Yes. I vanish. The statement settled into the room's silence. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. Vanish. Clarify what you mean. I mean, I exit the field completely. Get out of New York, maybe out of the country, and build a new life where the New York Police Department has no reach. Vincent directed the question to Elena, his gaze fixed away from Lily. What is the required time frame for my absence? Years, most likely. It could be permanent. Elena snapped the file closed. It also means severing all connections to your life here, your family, your crew. A single message becomes a homing beacon. All of them. Lily's question was barely audible. Including. Vincent's eyes finally met hers, the agony in them unmistakable. It would lower the threat level for both of us. Threat level? Lily let out a sharp, broken laugh of disbelief. Is that what you call this? Abandoning me to protect me? I call it keeping you from being collateral in a prison cell. Vincent's hands clenched. If I stay, they will interrogate you, squeeze you for information, and dismantle your life piece by piece to use you as leverage against me. With me gone, you're reclassified as the abandoned girlfriend. You become useless to their investigation. But I would be left in a constant state of not knowing if you were alive or dead. Lily pushed her chair back, widening the gap between them. That's not protection, Vincent. That is just another form of psychological torture. It is the one plan that guarantees you are completely insulated from the consequences. I don't want to be insulated if the price is you. The declaration was a raw, uncontrolled cry. I already spent 3 years in limbo after David. I refuse to go back to that place. Vincent rose to approach her, but Lily recoiled. No, do not touch me while you pretend this is for my benefit. If you plan to run, then tell me the real reason. What is it you need to hear from me? I need you to admit that you're afraid, that you're choosing cowardice over fighting for us. Lily's vision swam with unshed tears. I need you to admit running is a selfish act. Her accusation landed with physical force. Vincent flinched, leaning on the table for support. For the first time she had ever known him, he looked completely lost. You are right, he confessed, the words torn from him. I am terrified. I'm afraid being with me will destroy you. I'm afraid that when I fall, I'll drag you down with me. I am afraid I'm not enough to be what you need. His voice broke. Running is the easier path, and you are right. It would be an act of cowardice. Lily closed the space between them, her hands gently cradling his face. Then do not run. Stay and fight this. We will see this through as a team. And what if we can't? What if there is no victory for us? Then we fail as a team. She kissed him, the taste of salt and desperation on their lips. But we will fail with our integrity intact. Elena's voice sliced through the intimacy. I must interject. The window to act is closing. The authorities could move on us at any time. A choice must be made. Vincent looked to Lily, a question in his eyes. She gave a firm, resolute nod. He turned to Elena. Explained the strategy for collapsing their case. The following week was a descent into a gray world between legal maneuvering and criminal conspiracy. with Elena directing operatives and Vincent calling in favors with veiled threats. Lily studied the anatomy of Vincent's world, a student of its pressures, offering aid where she could and absorbing its violent cadence. In the crucible, she found an iron core within herself, an unexpected capacity to parse criminal intelligence and observe raw intimidation without fracturing. To love Vincent was to embrace the whole of him, his talent for manipulation and his disregard for the law. The capture came on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after Detective Chen's first overture. A coded signal pulsed from Vincent's phone. "They have arrived. Follow the plan." Her hand shook as she keyed her reply. "I love you. The sentiment is returned. Hold steady." She shuttered her business for the day, retreated to the sanctuary of her home, and began the wait. 2 hours later, Detective Chen appeared wearing a mask of practiced empathy. "Miss Morgan, I am obligated to inform you that Vincent Russo was taken into custody this morning. The charges involve racketeering and extortion. It was a scene Lily had rehearsed with Elena. I failed to comprehend the accusation. Vincent operates an import business. Ms. Morgan, your connection is not a secret to us. We know it has been approximately 3 months." Chen's voice was a careful tool of disarmament. "My purpose here is not your arrest. I only need you to respond to a few questions. Am I under accusation for a crime?" "Not currently. If that is the case, I must have legal counsel present before I offer any further comment." Lily's voice was a controlled instrument, drawing on a fortitude built over 3 years of therapy and survival conditioning. "I must insist you leave my property at once." Chen's face was a study in resignation, not surprise. "My card has all the information you need should you decide to cooperate." After they departed, Lily methodically engaged 3 separate locks on her door, then collapsed onto her sofa, a vessel of grief breaking apart until only stillness remained. The arraignment was held the next day. From her seat in the gallery, Lily watched them lead Vincent in, the orange of his jumpsuit a jarring violation against the man she knew, his hands cuffed before him. His eyes found hers in the crowd, and for a fleeting moment the hard lines of his face softened. The prosecution presented its case, a mountain of testimony from his men, damning financials, and silent, watching surveillance tapes. The evidence seemed an iron cage, yet Elena dismantled it with a surgeon's grace, exposing the frailties of each witness and challenging the integrity of the evidence until the prosecution's case felt like mere speculation. The judge set bail at $2 million, a sum Vincent's family produced in less than an hour. He came to her apartment that night, tethered to the world only by an ankle monitor that tracked his every move. They held each other without a word, a silent pact acknowledging this was merely the first battle in a long war. "The trial is scheduled for 2 months from now," Vincent finally said. "Elena believes there is a strong chance most charges will be thrown out. And the ones that stick? A sentence of probation, perhaps community service." He pulled back, studying her face. "There is a tangible chance I can walk away from this, Lily. We could actually win." But this was a victory whose psychological cost Lily had never calculated. In the 6 weeks that followed, she watched the careful architecture of Vincent's life systematically crumble. Allies disappeared into the shadows. Professional lifelines were severed, and the very family who posted his bond began to distance themselves from his toxic legal troubles. The night before the trial, Vincent's uncle Antonio, the philanthropist from the photograph, paid a visit. You have become a liability, Antonio said, his words devoid of sentiment. The family cannot afford the stain of your association with this trial. Vincent's expression became a mask of stone. I have poured my entire life into this family, bled for it, and taken lives for it. And now you face a prison cell for it, unless... Antonio slid an envelope across the table. Unless you agree to this proposition. What proposition? You plead guilty to reduced charges. You serve 18 months in a minimum security prison. In exchange, you become a source, giving them every name above you in the organization. A profound quiet descended upon the room. A deep, visceral chill crept through Lily as she understood Antonio's true purpose. For Vincent to betray his entire world, to burn down the family he had served, all to shield them from the fallout of his trial. Are you telling me to turn informant? Vincent's voice was a low, dangerous thing. I am telling you to be a strategist. Take the deal, serve the time, and the family will take care of you when you are out. Refuse, and you will have nothing. Leave! Vincent stood, his body radiating a menace Lily had never seen before. Get out of my home before I forget that we are blood. Antonio departed without another word, the envelope a poisonous offering on the table. You aren't actually considering that, Lily whispered. No. Vincent picked up the envelope and threw it away, but it certainly clarifies where I stand with my family. The trial consumed the next 3 weeks. Lily kept a daily vigil in the courtroom, watching the prosecution paint Vincent as a monster, while Elena systematically took their portrait apart, piece by piece. Witnesses folded under the pressure of her cross-examinations. Evidence was ruled inadmissible, and key testimonies were dismissed as unreliable. The success of her strategy felt miraculous. With the jury returned its verdict, guilty on 2 lesser counts, innocent on all others, Lily felt a deep, somatic tremor as years of tension released from her body. The sentence came a week later, 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and a heavy fine. Vincent walked out of the courtroom, a man unbound by the law. That night, in her apartment, they sat in silence, their minds still processing the aftershocks of the event. It's over, Vincent said, his voice layered with shock. We made it through. It's not completely over. Lily reached for his hand. You're still on probation, still watched. But I am not an inmate, and you are not. His voice broke. You were never put on the stand, never made to choose between your survival and your conscience. I chose you, Lily said, her voice firm as she leaned against him. I will always choose you. After a long silence, Vincent spoke again. The family has cut me off. My refusal to take Antonio's deal was the final break. I am nothing to them now. What does that mean for you? It means I have to build a new life, to learn who Vincent Russo is without the scaffolding of a criminal empire. He turned to look at her fully. Is there any room in that new life for a florist from Brooklyn? For the first time in what felt like an eternity, a real smile bloomed on Lily's face. I think some room can be made. Over the next year, Vincent undertook the careful reconstruction of a man. He used his private capital, which he swore was clean, to build a consulting firm for supply chain logistics. He served his hours at a youth center in Queens, teaching teenagers about consequence. He stayed with Lily, bringing her coffee each morning, helping in the shop, and building a bond of transparency and truth. The peace was not perfect. Vincent was haunted by nightmares of prison and moved with the soldiers' hypervigilance. Lily had moments when the old anxiety would rise, compelling her to check the door locks 4 times instead of her usual 3. They fought over his instinct to solve her problems before she asked and her tendency to retreat into silence when stressed. But they were learning, becoming 2 people who could be whole on their own and stronger together. Sophie and Michael gave their cautious blessing. Vincent made it clear to Michael that the days of gambling, of dangerous debts, of putting Sophie at risk were over. Michael agreed, entered therapy, and began the long, slow work of earning back trust. The real test came 18 months after the trial, when Vincent's probation officer made a surprise visit and found Lily making dinner in his kitchen. "Didn't know you had a girlfriend," the officer remarked. "I didn't think it was pertinent to my probation," Vincent answered, his tone level. "Every variable is pertinent." The officer turned to Lily. "You aware of his record, what he's done?" "I am fully aware," Lily said, "and I am still here." The officer stared at them for a long, calculating moment. "You're either one of the bravest women I've ever met or one of the most foolish." "Probably a little of both," Lily admitted, "but I'm happy." After he was gone, Vincent pulled Lily into his arms. "You didn't have to defend me like that. I absolutely did, because you are mine, and I don't let people insult what is mine." Vincent let out a laugh, a deep rumble Lily felt against her heart. "When did you get so damn fierce? I had a very good teacher." 2 years after the trial, Vincent's probation ended. He had fulfilled every requirement, broken no rules, and built a successful, legitimate company. The ankle monitor was cut from his leg, severing the last tie to his old life. That night, he brought Lily to the Italian restaurant where he had first told her he loved her. Rose's grandmother was still in the kitchen making carbonara, and their corner table was waiting. "I have to ask you something," Vincent said after their food had arrived. "And saying no is an option. In fact, it's the most logical response, since this is unconventional and we've only known each other for 2.5 years. And Vincent." Lily reached across the table, her hand covering his. "Just ask." He presented a small box, opening it to show a plain gold band holding a single diamond. "I know I'm flawed. I know my past is a shadow that will always be there, and that being with me is harder than it ought to be. But you make me want to be better. You make me think I can be." His voice cracked. "Marry me." Lily looked at the ring, at Vincent's fragile hope, and at the future they were building from scars and hard-won trust. She thought of how they'd survived threats, court cases, terror, and the immense, difficult decision to stay. "Yes," she breathed, watching pure joy transform Vincent's face. "Yes, I'll marry you." They wed 6 months later in an intimate ceremony at Sophie and Michael's home, with only their closest friends present. There was no grand party, no lavish decoration, only 2 people promising to choose each other every day for the rest of their lives. Lily wore a simple cream gown, holding a bouquet of roses from Sophie's own wedding. Vincent was in a suit that lacked its usual intimidating power. He seemed almost serene as he spoke his vows. "I promise to bring you coffee every single morning," he said, drawing a laugh from a crying Lily. "I promise to check the locks with you as many times as you need. I promise to tell you the truth when it's hard, and I promise to spend every day trying to deserve your love." "I promise to call out your lies," Lily answered. "I promise to push you to be better. I promise to stay when things get terrifying, and I promise to love you for who you are with all your scars." They shared a kiss as husband and wife, and Lily felt a profound wholeness, a return to herself. 3 years on, Vincent stood at his services community center, addressing at-risk kids about making better choices than he had. Lily watched from afar as he connected with teens who saw in him a reflection of their own struggles, a man who had walked their path and found a way out. After his talk, a young woman approached Vincent, her anxiety palpable. "How do you know if you're making the right call?" she asked. "I mean, how can you tell if something is worth the risk?" Vincent's eyes found Lily's across the room. Lily gave a small, encouraging smile. "You can never be certain, but sometimes you find a person or a cause that makes you brave, that forces you to act despite your fear, or even because of it." "Does it always turn out okay?" "No," Vincent admitted. "You can make the wrong choice, and those mistakes have consequences. But other times—" He reached out, his fingers lacing with Lily's. "Other times the choice is right, and it changes your entire world." The girl absorbed his words before moving off to consider them. Vincent pulled Lily close, kissing her temple. "Are you all right?" he asked. "More than all right." Lily rested against him, feeling the solid beat of his heart. "I'm home." And it was true. It wasn't the quiet, anonymous life she'd imagined for herself as a florist, but something far better. It was a home built on truth and hard choices, on a forbidden love and a trust forged in trauma. Vincent started a foundation, using his legitimate business profits to help families escape the same kind of predatory lenders who'd nearly destroyed Michael and Sophie. Lily, for her part, had grown her own business, hiring 2 assistants and taking on much larger floral projects. They bought a small house in Brooklyn with a garden for her to grow her own flowers, a sanctuary where they could perform their ritual of locking the doors and finally feel secure. They weren't perfect. Vincent still had days when the ghost of his past returned, when he fought the man he was against the man he had become. Lily still had nights crippled by panic and the phantom pains from her scars, but they faced those moments together. They had built a life from the wreckage of 2 broken people who found each other in a ballroom and refused to let go. 5 years after their wedding, Lily woke to find Vincent watching her with an intensity she knew meant his mind was racing. "What's wrong?" she murmured, half asleep. "Nothing's wrong. Everything is right." Vincent gently brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "I was just thinking about Sophie's wedding night. How I almost didn't go because I hated family events, how close I came to never meeting you at all, but you found me." "No, I didn't miss you." He pulled her in, and Lily felt the faint curve of a smile against her hair. "Asking you to dance was the best thing I ever did." "The second best," Lily corrected. "Bringing me coffee the next day was the best." Vincent's laugh was a rich, genuine sound that still made Lily's heart skip. "Can I tell you a secret?" "Always." "I was terrified that morning, sure you'd slam the door, call the police, or tell me to get lost forever. So why did you come?" "Because you were worth more than the fear. You still are." Vincent's kiss was slow and deliberate. "Every single day you are worth the risk." They lay there in the early light, 2 imperfect people who had found their anchor and refused to drift. Outside, the city began to stir, the sound of cars, of voices, the constant thrum of New York. But within their small, secure home and its garden of roses, Lily and Vincent had created something immune to the chaos. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but a real, honest life that was worth every beautiful and terrifying choice it took to build. And when Vincent finally got up to make coffee, Lily checked the locks just twice before she went to join him, ready to start another day of choosing their bond, their love, and the messy, hard, and absolutely perfect life they had made, together from broken pieces and relentless hope.
The Garden and the Gun: How Love Interrupts the Cycle of Violence. Some stories are not really about romance. They simply use romance as the most intimate stage on which to examine power, trauma, and moral inheritance. The story of Lily Morgan and Vincent Russo is one of those stories. On the surface, it looks like a familiar collision between softness and danger, a florist and a man from the criminal underworld. But beneath that framework lies something more unsettling and more meaningful. This is a story about what happens when two people, each shaped by violence in radically different ways, attempt to build a life together without first asking whether love can survive the systems that made them. Lily is not introduced as a hopeful heroine waiting to be awakened. She is introduced as someone who has already been altered by trauma. Her life is not empty, it is narrowed. She has learned to exist through rituals of control: sleeves pulled low, exits mapped, locks checked, attention avoided. She has built what many trauma survivors build: not a joyful life, but a manageable perimeter. This distinction matters. She is not living expansively, she is living defensively. The body remembers before language does, and Lily's body has become an archive of caution. Vincent, by contrast, embodies the opposite adaptation. He has not learned to hide from violence. He has learned to organize himself around it. He is calm, observant, decisive, and dangerous, not because he is inherently monstrous, but because his world has rewarded emotional compartmentalization and coercive competence. Where Lily became smaller in response to harm, Vincent became harder. Both are products of damaged environments. Both appear functional. Both are, in a profound sense, still being governed by the thing that hurt them. This brings us to the first lesson. What often looks like personality is really adaptation. Lily's quietness is not simply temperament. Vincent's control is not simply strength. Each has constructed an identity around survival. That is why their attraction feels believable. They are not drawn together because one is pure and one is dark. They are drawn together because each recognizes in the other a familiar architecture of damage. It is a recognition deeper than charm. He sees how she scans the room. She sees how he lies with practiced ease. They are both fluent in the language of danger. The wedding scene where they first truly connect is essential because it dramatizes this recognition without over-explaining it. Vincent's attention does not feel like ordinary male interest. Lily is not flattered so much as unsettled. Yet she does not retreat. Something in her understands that he is not staring at her surface. He is seeing structure. He notices the sleeves. He asks the question others avoid. The dance that follows is not merely romantic. It is an interruption of both of their survival habits. She accepts visibility. He practices gentleness without immediately converting it into control. That leads to the second lesson. Healing often begins not when someone is rescued, but when someone is seen without being reduced. This is why the floral symbolism in the Lily's profession matters so much. She works with petals and thorns, beauty and pain fused into one object. Flowers in this context are not decorative, they are a philosophy. To make something beautiful, one must handle what can still wound. That metaphor becomes the emotional core of the story. Lily does not represent purity, she represents cultivation after damage. Vincent does not represent corruption alone, he represents what happens when human feeling grows in soil watered by violence. But the story is too morally serious to let this remain poetic for long. Vincent makes the fatal relational mistake of believing that love can be protected through selective truth. He keeps Lily away from the details of his world, not because he wants to deceive her in a petty sense, but because he believes he can contain consequence. This is a very specific form of masculine delusion, the belief that protection justifies secrecy, that one can make unilateral decisions in the name of love and still call the result intimacy. The story dismantles that belief completely. When enemies target Lily, when her records are exposed and her friend's safety is compromised, the emotional thesis becomes explicit. Vincent's world cannot be quarantined. Violence does not respect emotional boundaries. The very tenderness he wanted to preserve becomes the path through which his enemies attack. Love does not soften the criminal system. It simply gives the system a more precise place to strike. Thus emerges the third lesson. Any structure built on fear will eventually weaponize what its members love most. What distinguishes Lily from a more passive romantic heroine is that she refuses to accept retaliation as resolution. This is perhaps the story's most mature insight. Vincent's instinct is to threaten, punish, and erase. Lily's instinct, forged through her own history, is more morally sophisticated. She knows what it means to survive immediate danger only to remain psychologically imprisoned by the conditions that made it possible. So when another predatory man enters the narrative through Michael's debt crisis, she does not want one debt quietly paid and the problem forgotten. She wants the predatory mechanism itself ended. In that moment, Lily becomes the conscience of the story. Vincent has spent his life being effective. Lily asks him to be accountable. He has mastered the art of imposing order through fear. She asks whether order built that way is anything more than organized terror. This is why their relationship matters thematically. It is not simply a question of whether he loves her enough to protect her. It is whether he loves her enough to let her ethics disrupt his instincts. That is the fourth lesson. The deepest form of love is not admiration. It is moral interruption. The police investigation intensifies this conflict rather than replacing it. The law does not appear here as a clean symbol of justice, but as another force demanding alignment. Lily is offered a path of self-preservation through betrayal. Vincent is offered survival through disloyalty. Each is pushed toward a choice that would secure the self at the cost of something essential. In this sense, the courtroom is merely a more official version of the streets, an arena in which people are asked what they will sacrifice and for whom. Vincent's break from the family is the story's true turning point. He discovers what all violent systems eventually reveal. Loyalty flows upward until survival becomes expensive. Once he is a liability, the family's mythology collapses. He is no longer brother, son, or heir. He is inventory. This is the moment he finally confronts the emptiness at the center of inherited power. And so we arrive at the fifth lesson. Belonging purchased through fear is never belonging at all. The ending is meaningful because it resists fantasy. Lily does not become unscarred. Vincent does not become innocent. Trauma remains. Habit remains. Vigilance remains. But what changes is the governing logic of their lives. He is no longer serving a system that trains him to dehumanize. She's no longer organizing herself entirely around avoidance. Together, they move from reaction to intention. That movement is small on paper. Coffee, work, shared domesticity, community service. But psychologically and morally, it is enormous. Their life becomes ordinary, and that ordinariness is the miracle. In the end, the story suggests that people do not escape violence simply by rejecting it. They escape by building structures of truth, accountability, and care strong enough to replace the ones that once shaped them. Love does not erase history, it creates a rival future. And that perhaps is the final lesson this story offers. The opposite of trauma is not forgetting. The opposite of trauma is building a life in which fear is no longer the primary author of every decision. Lily and Vincent do not find perfection. They find authorship. And for two people born into survival, that may be the closest thing to freedom.